Looking at page 31, we are revisiting distance and midpoint, specifically midpoint. If you remember the day that we started this sheet, we had a little section that I said, hold off on this. We're going to come back to this after we take a quiz over it. And so that's today. Going to, software's going to crash, hold on. So go to the back, and then top left corner, you're going to see where it says how to find an endpoint. Go to the back and go to this little section right here. Okay, if you recall, finding the midpoint, right, is a coordinate point where the x coordinate comes from finding the middle of two other x coordinates, and the y coordinate comes from finding the middle of two other y coordinates, right? Find the middle, find the average. Okay, today, instead of, and I want you to draw this in a little margin that you have at the top of your paper. You have more room than I do. I want you to go to the margin at the top of the paper, and I want you to draw a dot connected to another dot. So a line segment. Then put a point in the middle. So before, I gave you the two endpoints and you found the middle. That's what we've been doing. Now I'm going to give you, I want you to put a check mark here. This means you know it. I'm going to give you one endpoint and the middle. Put a check mark there. And your job is to find the other endpoint. So that's the visual, to give you an idea. If you look at this section right here, this is where you're taking notes and you're going to write a little formula that works every time on how to do this. The formula involves this right here. You already have seen this. You already know how to use this. The midpoint that comes out of this is some x and y, and it comes from the middle of the other x's and the middle of the other y's. Okay, so today I'm giving you the x coordinate of the midpoint and one of the endpoints, and you're finding the remaining one. I'm giving you the y coordinate and one of the y endpoints, and you're finding the other one. Okay? So the unknown part has moved. So instead of writing this mess on your paper, because when you look at this, this is probably confusing. Am I right? It's probably a little bit confusing. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull it apart. We're going to just do the x's in one little section, and we're going to do the y's in one section, instead of shoving it together like that, because that's a lot to take in. So write this down, and then I'll explain what it means. Capital M, little x, meaning the x coordinate of the midpoint is the two endpoint x's added together and divided by 2. The y coordinate of the midpoint, now it looks like I wrote the word my, is the two y endpoints added together divided by 2. Alright, now let's apply it. We're going to do number 5. I'm going to go ahead and forewarn you this gets crowded, and we end up having to try number 6 in a different open space on your worksheet. So look at number 5. We will come back to this picture right here, number 4, in a minute. Look at 5. Which one is the midpoint? The one labeled M, right? So come underneath it and make a note to yourself, okay, that's my midpoint, so that you don't accidentally claim it as an endpoint. This does matter. We're going to focus on just the x's. The x-coordinate of the midpoint is what number? 7. And the x-coordinate of one of the given endpoints is what number?
14.
Okay, so up here, I know 7 and I know 14. You see where I'm plugging this in? So let's write it. I've got the 7 is equal to 14 plus some x value that we don't know divided by 2. So now this is a basic 2-step equation that we have to solve. And the beauty of it is it's the same step every time, every problem, every day. What is the opposite of divide by 2?
Multiply.
So if I multiply by 2, that mess will go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now whatever I do to one side,
Gotta do the other.
got to do to the other. So you end up with 14 equals, now bring the top down, 14 plus x. Looks a little awkward. Minus this 14 that's right here to the other side. 14 minus 14 is 0. That's okay, that's allowed. So the x-coordinate is 0. All right, now we're going to repeat with the y-coordinate. So look at the numbers. What's the y-coordinate of the midpoint? 1. What's the y-coordinate of the endpoint?
2.
So over here, I know the y-coordinate of the midpoint, and I know one of the endpoints. We got 1 and 2, right? So let's plug it in. Midpoint's 1. Coming from 2 plus some y value over 2. What's the first step? Multiply by 2. You end up with 2 equals 2 plus y. Now this is just coincidence.
And then it'll be 0.
Subtract the 2. You end up with 0 again. So the other endpoint is 0, 0. Now let's look at it and check it. If the endpoint is 0 to 14, what's the middle? If the endpoints are 0 to 14, what's the middle?
7.
7. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
If the endpoints are 0 to 2, what's the middle?
1.
1. Makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
So don't get bogged down in the equation and overthink it. You're just finding the end when you know the middle. I want everyone to try number 6. I realize you probably don't have room right there. I would say that you have room on to the right and up in the margin at the top. So if you go to the right and up at the top, I think you're going to have room. Copy those points from 6. Which one is the midpoint?
5 negative 2.
The one labeled M, right? All right, you try it. Set up the equation for x, set up the equation for y, plug in what you know. look and see if you set up the equations right. It's the first step to solving them. Multiply both sides by 2. That'll get rid of the ugly fraction, and then that number on the left, of course, will double. And then in this case, instead of subtracting, we have negative numbers, so we are adding. You would add 3 over, right? And then add the 22 over. So you end up with 13 comma negative 8. So that's finding the endpoint when you know the other one is the midpoint. Look at number 4. Number 4 is the graph. Which one is the midpoint? The one labeled M, right? Now you might be wondering, okay, why didn't they just draw the entire segment? Well, if they did that, then there's no work to be done, right? Because then the other endpoint would be showing. There's 2 ways to do this. One way is to read the graph and write the coordinates of C, write the coordinates of M, and do exactly what we just did. That's one way. The alternative way is going back to the day that I taught midpoint to you, and I explained that when you do find the midpoint of a segment, it will, if you use kind of like the slope concept, rise over run, you can draw 2 triangles that match exactly. And so if you look at this, and this is where I need to erase this because I'm going to cut into it. Which direction does the segment need to continue? Up or down? The visual is it's going to keep going down, right? And it's going to be somewhere down here. Now it's going to shoot off the graph, obviously. But you can count from here where it should land based on from here how you get to M. So watch. Notice that C is at 8. So it would be 8 down. And I need to keep going, right? 9, 10. So I went down 10. I'm going to draw an arrow. Down 10.
Good afternoon.
I go left.
Your bus changes for today.
4.
That's 123. Will be bus 125. Bus 114 will double up on bus 15. Bus 135 will be bus 148. Bus 140 will be 55. And bus 87 will be bus 121. Again, your bus changes for today. Bus 123 is 125. Bus 114 will double up on bus 15. Bus 135 will be 148. Bus 140 will be bus 55. And bus 87 will be bus 123. Remember, seniors, that all money and forms for the senior bowling trip are due by this Friday, February the 4th at 3:20. This field trip will be canceled if we do not have more money
So if
and
I'm at
forms
negative
turned
2, and I go down 10 more,
NCAA
where are
meeting
we?
next Wednesday on March the 1st at 7:30.
Negative 12.
Here's Dr. Rachel.
Hey students, just a friendly reminder that we will have our PBIS walkthrough, which means we're going to have some visitors on our campus tomorrow morning. They're going to be going around between 7:30 and 7:45 asking you questions about our PBIS practices. Some of the questions you might hear might sound like this. What are your Tiger expectations? Hopefully you will respond by saying respect, honesty, and service. You guys should know that by now, that these are our behavior expectations. They'll also ask you how we reward or acknowledge positive behaviors, and that is through our Tiger Bucks and our positive office referrals. We also do our field trips at the end of each semester. We do movies, and then we'll do something again in the spring. So just be ready and prepared so that we're asking you questions tomorrow. You're ready for it.
All right, and if I'm at -2. So that's one way to get the other endpoint, and it's by creating those triangles that match the same distance apart. Okay? Your practice assignment tonight is that distance and midpoint sheet that you picked up after the quiz. It's page 33. The top part is distance, the bottom part is midpoint, and I will be checking tomorrow to see who has it done. If you didn't finish, you have to let tomorrow.